Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise, and we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello dear viewer and listener out there. Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe, as always, your host of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom. Pleasure, it's privilege, all of those beautiful things. To be back here in the new year with new guests, and I do have CEOs and captains of industry who are here to enthuse, energize, and inspire us as per our tagline. And today we're going to talk about the creative industry, and my guest is
Tumelo Bogatsu from Baagisani Creative Think Tank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a quick reminder that please strike that subscribe button, please, as we enter into our conversation. Bogatsu, just tell them a bit about your academic background and your condensed CV, as it were.
Oh, okay. I grew up as a dancer. Mm-hmm. I've been dancing since I was 16 years old. I've been forming teams since I was 16 years old. But I went to study multimedia innovation, or you'd say media innovation. So at the end of the day, I work with managing media and managing open spaces, managing integrated spaces or integrated systems that seem a bit complex, but you would try to then understand how do they all synchronize. Yeah.
And dance, how did you gravitate towards dance?
Well, I think just from being children, we gravitate towards who's cool, right? So you grow up learning about Michael Jackson, about Usher, about all of these guys who do nice things that other people like. So, but then besides that, professionally, I would say I had a Kenyan friend back in St. Joseph's College. He used to see me maybe just busting a few moves in class, and then one time he was like, hey, I think we should go perform at like the open day or something. So let's come up with a choreo. We did that. Once we performed, everybody loved it, and we started going to Maitiso and try to see where dance is popular and who's doing it, and striving to be the best out of it. Yeah.
And what genre of dance, or what niche of dance are you in?
Oh, it was hip hop. We started the hip hop movement that was in 2004. We had a crew called the Earthquakes, and we became a national sensation. That was the time of like My African Dream. So we became really popular, but then from there, as a leader, the question is always like, what's next? Like when dance became popular in 2006 now, and crews were coming in, corporate was starting to sponsor dance, Orange was doing Trophy Masters. For me, as one of the industry leaders, the question was, what am I going to do next? And there's no room for growth in this country. So that's one of the things that
what do you mean there's no room for growth? Because
no,
of the population, or what?
No, in terms of excellence, in terms of competition, in terms of, in the creative industries, especially at that time for me, there was no one who was doing anything above what the Earthquakes was serving at the time, or what our crew was doing. So there wasn't anyone to look up to and say, I'm going to try and be like that guy. So hence, when that happens, you are forced to move out to go get a certain skill and then come back. This is why a lot of people I'm going to leave the country, go get a certain skill, come and try and implement it at home. But then that's not necessarily how things work either way. Yeah.
Let's talk about Baagisani, which is your entity, or what do you want to call it? Is it a company? Is it an association?
Okay. For now, it is a company.
Mm-hmm.
But ideally, we're supposed to register as a social enterprise. For me, I've grown up with this thing that I don't have to be rich to impact humanity. I don't have to wait to be rich, to impact humanity. So I've always wanted to build something that can help people. So open source models or open space systems is something that I've learned to embrace, to say, what can we do to build our communities? Mm-hmm. So I would say Baagisani right now is a cooperative, since there's a collective of directors in it who are building the strategies and how the model is going to work. Mm-hmm. But then ideally, right now, to register a social enterprise in Botswana is like 4,200 pula. You need to have a governing board council. You need to have proof of where funds are coming from. So we've decided to start with the more affordable option, and then we'll build up to the full concept that we want to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you say is the mission?
The mission. The mission of Baagisani is to coordinate our creative industries. Right now, everyone is sitting and waiting for government. But to be honest, if you want a thriving economy, you have to build it yourself as the people of the land. On the ground, because we know what's actually going on. So if anything, we should be building it with the government, but we shouldn't be waiting for the government to try and build a creative system. And the tricky thing about creativity is it works backwards from analytical thinking. Analytical thinking is a build-up system. Creativity is a substitution system. You get the full grasp of it, and then you start partitioning it and breaking it down.
Is that like reverse engineering?
Exactly. Creativity is exactly reverse engineering. So it's going to take government quite a while to figure out what this animal is if they're not working directly with a creative body that they can keep exchanging information with.
I have two questions for you. The definition of a think tank, and secondly, whether you are benchmarking from anywhere in the world, or those are two questions.
Okay, so a think tank is basically pulling ideas together to come up with solutions. Think tanks started after the Second World War, when the West was so broken down and they needed strategies that were robust to execute things that were going to change the...
You mean like the Marshall Plan?
Yeah, you could say that.
To resurrect Europe after it was wasted. It was a wasteland.
It was a wasteland. And to do that, you need to understand who's going to do what quickly, and tasks need to be assigned. So you start with building an information system first. Right now we're talking about knowledge-based systems, but we don't understand that you have to build the information first so that it is the one that is being transmitted quickly to people, and tasks are being assigned to say who's going to execute what quickly. So right now, a think tank is basically that it's an information system, it's a knowledge-based system. It's also a natural system in the sense that it goes with taking information that's existing and then processing it and then engineering it also to then say, how is this information going to coordinate and build people quickly? So that is what a think tank is. And then in terms of, there's a creative side. Because what happened is we started the concept in 2019 when we sat down after a Botswana Innovation Hub, these coffee sessions that they used to have.
I hope they haven't stopped.
They have.
They shouldn't have.
They've stopped. I think they tried resuscitating them, but it wasn't working out.
They stopped by COVID.
Yeah. Initially, they were stopped by COVID. But after one of those sessions, we sat down with like a group of 5 people. We were like, what's the one solution that we need to create? We realized that there's a diversity of solutions that need to be created, and hence there has to be a system that coordinates that diversity of solutions. So that's where we decided to form just a WhatsApp group, a think tank. And now, as we were developing ideas, coming up with solutions, identifying problems, we realized that you cannot assign another person to execute your ideas. When an idea comes to your head, you are the one to solve it, or at least find a team that can help you solve it, right? So that's where the creativity came in. We were like, we have to find ways, or we have to build teams and identify companies of people who are then going to execute this idea. So that's basically what the creative think tank is. And then, sorry, you talked about benchmarking. So in terms of benchmarking, because now we are on the execution part, I would talk about Silicon Valley, right? A lot of people will talk about Apple, they will talk about Uber, they'll talk about all of these companies that are booming up from America.
Those are unicorns.
Right? But no one ever talks about who's enabling these companies. Like, there's normally, if you go to a country and you're only looking for the product, you're never going to acknowledge that there's a system behind it enabling those companies to thrive. So Silicon Valley, you never even see it on Forbes, right? It's because it's a research institution. It's an information system that
Is it a think tank?
It's more or less a think tank. I would say it is a think tank that is focusing more on tech. So it is a think tank because I'm benchmarking on it primarily, right? Even though I also look into other creative hubs and other integrated systems, right? Because Rona, our problem is much bigger than Yakwa America. So you'll find Baagisani keeps growing because we are trying to identify more and more problems that we have locally. So I would say Silicon Valley, if people could look into it, they realize that Silicon Valley is the one that builds smart cities for America. That's where the ingenious minds are grouped together to say, how are we going to do the next thing, right? So basically that's where Baagisani is envisioning itself.
Define the name, because I'm see that Baagi, it's almost like Baagisani, but it's got a double meaning of Baagi and then San.
Exactly.
Yeah, help me. Are these double meanings intentional, or is there a bigger significance than that?
I'm one person who believes in the laws of nature. So one of the laws of, actually this one is more of a spiritual law, is duality, that everything comes in twos. Right, so but then when you come to the law of nature, it will be polarity or the law of correspondence, right? So in this meaning, Baagisani, obviously the obvious one is Baagisani, right? And then we decided to cut that short. Mostly when I come up with a Setswana name, I always think about how a foreigner is going to pronounce it, right? So to pronounce Baagisani as Baagisani would be easier for a foreigner to even pronounce it. And then I was like, but within that word itself, what does it mean? And what do we want to achieve as the organization? So Baagi means builders.
Baagisani means what? Citizens, right?
Yeah, neighbors.
Neighbors, neighbors, sorry.
Yeah.
And Baagisani means?
Baagisani then means builders of indigenous people. Primarily that's what it would mean. But when you look at the fact that to be indigenous means you have to be there, I don't know, maybe for a long time, like you have to be the first, right? So for Botswana, everyone who's naturalized in Botswana since 1966 is an indigenous Botswana. If we were to start revising the naturalization of Botswana from independence, then we should acknowledge that everyone who was a Botswana then is a naturalized Botswana now.
Anybody who was a citizen of Botswana land
exactly
is automatically a, I don't know whether you want to, we call it naturalized as opposed to what? Naturalized is when you apply.
But
indigenous is original.
I think there's another word.
There's a word like, well, with this, in the case of the San, there's a word like the first people of the Kalahari.
Yeah.
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 Which means the original. Yeah.
And then now there's the tribes, the Bantu tribes that came, which is most of us, who then came into this land. What are we?
From according to some historians, from East Africa.
Yes, yes. But for me, I would say that there's a diversity. I don't think we were all located in one place. Yeah, I think there's a diversity because there were several civilizations around that time. So if you look at that, those civilizations were able to, from Egypt to Kush, they were able to sustain themselves that long.
To Mali.
Yeah. And even till now, we still have some of those techniques and even some of those similar dialects. So I think history just has to be re-unpacked a bit more.
And now we go back to the meaning. So Baagisani, in relation to what you just said, would then mean, therefore? The
people of the land built together. To be honest, the one thing that a foreigner will never figure out is someone's culture. There are certain things, especially the creative industries, we cannot entrust them to a foreigner. They can't understand it. That's where they get a blind eye of what we're doing exactly, because culture is intrinsic before it is extrinsic. Before you share it, it's like before you can help another person, you have to help yourself. You have to build up yourself first. So the more we keep entrusting the West to come and consult us, advise us, and yet we are not nurturing our own talents and skills, we are really failing our people and failing ourselves, right? So maybe just to sum that up, Baagisani is just the notion that we are the ones to build up this country. So the question is, where's the next person who can do that work come from? Where's the next Botswana genius? Where's the next Botswana capable person who can build?
We're trying to unearth the Steve Jobs of Botswana and the Elon Musks of Botswana.
We don't have any enabling system to do that here. We are just talking about MySec enabling the arts, and the arts is only one sector, it's only one industry of the whole creative industries. So in terms of creativity itself, there's no one besides Baagisani right now. There is no one facilitating how the creative industries is going to operate.
Of course, it must be pointed out that some of these geniuses were extraordinary themselves, and they didn't wait for anybody to discover them.
Definitely, and this is why we've decided to build a model that can recruit these geniuses. Yeah.
Now, we spoke of the mission. What is the vision?
The vision is knowing self, I would say. At the end of the day, we want a nation that is thriving on creating new ways of doing things. One thing that Africa hasn't done since the time of Egypt and Kush, as we are talking about, is build its own systems. We don't have modern systems. We are literally taking Western systems and trying to readopt them.
They're the same systems that were, according to some, originally taken from Africa.
No, they were...
And repackaged. And
exactly. The repackaging matters. Because when you... It's like the difference between plagiarism and learning from someone. Or at least taking some information. You have to readopt it to self. You don't take something exactly as it is. So... Yes, the biggest philosophers, Plato, they were learning from Egypt, and then
Alexandria.
Exactly, right? They did learn fundamentally from Egypt, but they readopted them to that culture. And then from the Greeks, it went down to the Romans, and now the Romans are hogging most of that information that we should be having. But some of us have been able to find it as we dig out these books and this knowledge. So we've learned. We are in a time, Botswana is in a very critical time of saying, how are we going to reinvent ourselves and build our own systems? Our president is already talking about knowledge-based systems. And this is to say, how are we going to take this knowledge and not only conserve it? Yes, conserving is good, but there's IP building. How do you turn an idea or a concept into a product and service that you can sell and market, and people know that is who you are, that is your identity, that is where we are.
Okay, what about dance? How does it feature in all of this?
Dancing, wow. Dancing, I would say...
That's your original, those are your roots.
Yeah, those are my roots, and that's where I learned most of this culture. Dancing is a culture. Right now, the whole world is influenced by hip-hop. Most people don't know where hip-hop comes from. Hip-hop was set up by what you call b-boys or breakers. It was first initiated by dancers, right?
You mean breakdance came from hip-hop, or hip-hop came from
hip-hop came from breakdance.
I used to breakdance, you know?
Are you serious? Yeah, no, that means that's where you got your agility and whatnot. It really sharpens your mind and it strengthens your core, right? So I would say this: the first element of hip hop is breaking, right? So what happens is the first principle of life is movement, right? The moment you move, you are showing that you have life. So this is why dance is the first principle of life. Dance builds communities. The moment you dance, you want to dance with another person. You cannot dance alone. I mean, you can, but
it's not cool.
It's an after thing. Normally, when you dance, somebody else reacts. This is why you see, whenever somebody wants to activate something, the first thing that you want to do is to put music and dance. Even music follows dance. A lot of people think rhythm is created first, but no. You create the rhythm first, and then the sound comes and mimics the rhythm. Yeah, it's the other way around. So this is why the breakers were dancing, were breaking first, and then the DJs saw how they were doing it, and then they created a break beat on top of what the breakers were doing or how they were moving. So for me, dancing has taught me about community building. One thing that creatives try to do is to do everything alone. Because yes, we are succumbed to the pressure of working alone, of being the master of your business. And it's good because it helps you learn about your business generally. But it's not good for building sustainability. So when we come to sustainability, we then say, how are we going to work together? How are we going to work as a collective? How are we going to build something that can be existing in the next 100 years? We're not even talking about 10 years when you build a system. Europe is more than 1,000 years old. Most of those countries have lasted for more than 1,000 years. And right now we are just 50 years old. So this is things that we need to be really thinking about. Once we start talking about creative industries, we're talking about creative systems that are able to create, to generate new things.
Yes. The buzzword around government circles is the reset agenda that the president gave a speech about.
Yeah.
And I'm looking in front of me at his speech, and I want to elicit a comment when he talks about value chain development. And to find out what your thoughts are. I'll just read paragraph 4 of that speech on page 9, Roman numeral 4. Value chain development. This will unlock opportunities for new high-growth companies in the private sector and youth development, among other citizen attributes. The initial sectors of focus will be minerals, tourism, food, and education. What are those the ideal priority areas? We also intend to identify new sectors in the global export space and successfully grow in Botswana, resulting in significant job creation and much needed export diversification. Export diversification and prioritizing on those specific areas, minerals, tourism, food, and education.
Yeah.
What does the think tank have to say about this speech generally?
Yeah.
The great mindset speech and all the mindset
Yeah.
talk. In terms of reset talk, I beg your pardon. It's actually a mindset reset.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to really hear what your views are, because I suspect you've thought about these things and you and your colleagues address them.
I don't think the mind can reset. I think you can change your mind by learning more. That means you are adding more knowledge, or you are revising what you initially knew, and then you're trying to adopt it to the time. There was one comment in the group where we were talking about the decisions that were made by our forefathers in Botswana. And we're like, but some of those decisions, we may be complaining about them now, but in that time, they were right. Or they were
relevant.
and they were relevant, and they were probably the best decisions to make. So now when we talk about mindset, we are talking about thinking. The high principle of everything is art. When you say the art of thinking, you're talking about the highest form of you to think in the right way under the right circumstances, and to evaluate a situation in the right manner, right? So when you talk about mindset change, you're talking about people being able to come together as a collective and not make rumors about one another, not lead to argument, not lead to beef, or what we would call beef,
disputes,
right? Disputes, but rather to analytically or even creatively start adopting other ways of thinking and say, how do we think? We normally say outside the box, but that is just called divergent thinking. So you go out to new areas that you've never thought of, and you try to see how they adopt to this new situation. COVID itself was a reset agenda. The agenda is more of the activity, it's not of the mind. The mind, if it were to shut down, it dies. So you cannot shut a mind and then restart it again. You just keep tweaking it to see where it should go in the right place, right? Okay. So I would say in terms of, I believe we're in an era of knowledge. Actually, we're in an era of knowledge probably since about 2000. That's what we've been saying since year 2000. We are in an era of knowledge, but now we're in an era of discernment, because you have to filter knowledge and pack it in the right way. So all of us have knowledge, but it's about who applies it in the right way, right? It's about how you use the knowledge for the benefit of yourself and for the benefit of humanity. Which is the discernment. So at the end of the day, when you get to where the areas that we should be focusing in, I'll give you an example. Botswana Innovation Hub is talking about 90% of those areas that you mentioned. How is it performing? It's underperforming. Majority of Botswana are creative, and they can excel in those industries, but those industries are a result of creativity. Let me go to food, a food system. When I talked about creative systems, I said they are systems that allow us to produce. And I'm talking even food. The way you even birth your child to become well nurtured until they can become an excellent citizen of the country. That's creativity. You are producing a great human genome that is built up that is excelling because of the nourishment you gave it from when it was a child, because of the education that you were giving it, so that it becomes creative and be able to think independently. That is a creative system. So when it comes to food, when you talk about farming the right way, you're talking about how to use land more sustainably, how to make sure that when you produce, you're producing foods that are healthy for human intake, that do not have too many killing germs and all of these sprays that we are spraying on food. So creative systems, it goes hand in hand even with natural systems. How do we do things the right way? So we have to tap into creativity itself first, and go on and empower every other thing. Because right now, like I'm saying,
the priorities are okay, but they should not. Mining and other things should not come first.
It shouldn't come first.
Creativity should come first. The creative industry should come first.
We should create, we should generate first, and then we should see how to implement. Actually, let me say we should create, and then we should analyze. To analyze is to put into compartments, right? So let me say after you create something and you see this thing is big, there's a diversity of things, you then put it into different compartments just so that it can be easily processed by other people. And then after that, you have to look at how it's going to be sustained over a period of time. Because over time, things change. Over the next 5 years to 10 years, we're not going to be dealing with the real estate in the same way as we were doing. Or at least we shouldn't be, right? But that is where we need to align creative sector with the analytical sector, and then with the sustainability of now how do we take it for the next 100 years.
Wow. This is very, very fascinating. All right. A skeptic might say, okay, all this talk sounds very flowery and very interesting, but practically, what have you come up with? What does Baagisani come up with? What are the tangibles and the intangibles that we can point to?
And that is exactly something that we had to do, and that's where reality check comes in, right? So one of the things is, while we were building this model and this strategic plan, we were looking for a space. The thing about thinking is, when you think too long, you start sounding like a madman.
You
become one. So it's not good to think for too long. You have to think and then apply yourself, and then revise what you have done, keep what is working, and then revise what is not working, and then reinvent yourself. And you have to keep doing that. That's the cycle of life. So while we were searching around, we found out that Molapo Crossing is trying, or at least the owner of Molapo is trying to turn the space into a creative hub. Now, one of the things that I mentioned was that I studied how to manage integrated spaces by learning how to manage multimedia, right? So when it comes to creative hubs, when it comes to pop-up parks, when it comes to open spaces, that is the type of spaces that we were looking for. So our first opportunity came from Molapo Crossing, and we were like, we can come here and help you to build your community, the people who are coming to use the creative hub. As you build the structures, you'll have a team that's going to coordinate.
What is it physically beyond the piazza, the Stanbic Piazza?
Beyond the piazza, so far it's just the shops. Yeah. So, but right now, he's working on building the hub, right? So building the hub, you build the co-working spaces, basically. That's the structural part. Okay, maybe one thing that I should mention, right, about a sustainable model. Sustainability model always considers three things: social, structural. Okay, let me say social, environmental, and economic, right? But you prioritize the social. The social is where you build the community. Before you, I understand you are in real estate.
Yes.
So I know even the process of an architect is to sit down with the person that they're building the space for. But I think to some extent that hasn't been intricate locally in Botswana.
You mean it hasn't been integrated?
Integrated is exactly. We are not considering who's going to use the space before we build a building. And that is where normally you're going to find an abandoned building or a building that is not able to capacitate.
Underutilized or whatever, yeah.
Exactly. So primarily, you're supposed to have this creative administrators already talking to a community, or building a community that's going to come and occupy that space, right? And then after that, that's when the environmental team comes in. You bring in your architects, your engineers, your urban planners to coordinate with these creative administrators, right? And then the administrators are mobilizing the community. The structural, your architects, they are building the structures, right? And then
let's get back to what's
and then
on
after
the
that,
ground.
you bring in the economic value of it, of how everyone is going to enterprise and generate capital to sustain that building,
Yes.
right? So sustainability is really what is the driving wheel of everything. If we are not considering how everyone is going to integrate together, then we are losing the plot.
So we go to Molapo Crossing,
Yeah.
and we'll find what?
Yeah. So in Molapo Crossing, though, even though we pitched this idea and the owner liked it, he was like, I've set up a structure for a gallery. Because he's basically been building spaces for creatives. I think that's one of his passions, right? He's a creatively minded person. So he was like, we have set up this space. Can you manage the space? And we had to come up with a model within a month that was sustainable. It had to have a revenue model. It had to organize how we are going to work with the artist community. So we ended up coming up with a residency model that would say, we're going to work with artists this way. We're going to exhibit them. We're going to make sure that we can build a clientele where they can sell the art pieces. We're going to make sure that they can come and use the studio to create some of their works. We're going to organize events. And really, this is what we should be going into with dealing with our spaces, but not only dealing with our spaces, but how we create even new things.
What about monetization?
Yeah.
How do you optimize for that?
Yeah. So monetization, as I was saying, there are three aspects, right?
The economic aspect. That's what I'm asking about that.
Exactly. So the economic aspect, like I'm saying, you create a revenue model. But then even that revenue model, there's where you need to have a product, there's where you need to create a service, because there needs to be someone buying into what you're doing. So at the gallery...
That's why I want the practical side.
Yeah, so...
Nuts and bolts. We're entrepreneurs. We want... What's happening?
So the gallery itself is an enterprise. So let me say Baagisani has created a new business. Because we were trying to show that this model works. So it's a business on its own that needs its own art director, that needs its own CEO, that needs its own employees. So in itself...
Is it making money yet?
It sells art. It is not making profit. It's making some money because we already have a revenue model. When you say
so you get the art from the artists in the street, as presumably, and then what happens?
Yeah, we've set up also a WhatsApp group. We have access to about 100 artists now, who every month we create an exhibition and they can submit their works and we host that exhibition. And then we invite high-profile people who could potentially buy that work. Now, like I've said, even if, like right now, you're doing real estate, but to start this baby, you had to build a reputation for it. Even though people know me from the creative industry in other sectors, now, just from starting this thing, people are waiting and seeing how long I'm going to run with it before they start jumping ship.
How committed are you?
Definitely. So I'm up for taking that trial, but or for taking up that challenge. But like I'm saying, we're already generating some capital because we are not waiting for other people to come and use our services. We are creating as we go. We are creating the events, the activities. We are already marketing. We are building relationships. So I would say we are not breaking even. We are not even making profit, but the wheel has already started turning. And
so have these high-profile people been responding?
They've definitely been responding because we know them.
Okay.
Some of them we went to school with them. It's just, I think in Botswana, everyone is striving to keep a good reputation, or everyone is trying to keep their own corner of the money. they take a while to respond to new ideas. And one thing that I've also learned about, like cooperation means the agreements between people for them to work together better. And to get into that field of where people already have corporate deals, it takes time. You need to also position yourself to show that you're not a threat to the ones that maybe already occupy in certain spaces. So
how is the conversion rate from submission of artwork to actually having people buy? How has it been?
It's been slow, like I'm saying. It's been slow, but that's only because, one, people want to bargain. So they want to deal directly with an artist. So we have to build a strong relationship with the artist so that they understand that value of how the gallery is benefiting them, right? So, and then you'll find that also, like I'm saying, people already have certain relationships. So the art industry is like advertising industry. It's a really closed market. Yeah, it's like there are those high players who are always assessing the small guys who's coming in, and they're trying to take up that space. It's really competitive. So I would say those are the challenges that we're dealing with, but it doesn't mean they cannot be overcome. It's a matter of just solidifying the relationship, and the quality that we deliver and the differentiation of our packages is really what matters. And
how does one view the artwork? Is it available on social media, or how do you go about accessing it?
So we have a space at Molapo Crossing. It's called Art Case Gallery. So it's always open from 10 a.m.
the only way is to go there.
No, I'm building.
You're building up to that. Sorry.
I'm building up to that. So you can visit us at the gallery to view the artwork that's hanging. We also have a Facebook page, Art Case Gallery. We have an Instagram page, Art Case Gallery. Another thing that we do is we create digital catalogs that we also email out to people who are following our pages and our platforms. So also, once we have your contact, we can always share more information.
All right. So in this space of think tanks and creativity generally, who are your role models? Who are your heroes, and why?
Oh yeah, I study old systems because, like I'm saying, I think we haven't built anything in a long time. So my favorite, one person that I studied over COVID was Tesla, Nikola Tesla, not Elon Musk, who called his company Tesla, right? I always like going to the source, or at least I like going to the furthest point of where the information originates. So Nikola Tesla is the guy who made electricity possible to be transmitted over miles across oceans and seas by creating what's called an alternating current system. And also he created an oscillating mechanism. What happens is direct current. If we were only using direct current, we would be having stations every kilometer. We'd be having power plants every kilometer or so, because when power shoots, when light shoots, it moves in a straight line, so it can only go so far. So it needs an oscillator to redirect it and then reshoot it again, so that it becomes perpetual. It starts shooting further and further, and it gains momentum, right? So basically that's what Nikola Tesla was able to do. He had a dream to do Wi-Fi electricity around the world without having to connect, because you can generate electricity from thin air, because there's water and electricity in the air. Science has discovered that now. They say there's microbes that can create electricity in thin air. So for me, that's it. Besides that, my heroes are models. I work with systems. One of the things that I discovered or that I learned was the types of creative thinking methods. So in engineering, in how they build structures and how they build systems, they use what is called systems thinking, right?
I've heard that word bandied around a lot.
Exactly. So systems thinking is how you build cars, how you build complicated structures. You consider the forces that are opposing, you consider the mechanism, and you consider the structures that are coming together, and how everything will be coordinated in that. So at the end of the day, for me, that's what I'm studying primarily. But I also study aesthetics, I study economics, I study what's the effect of me being in this room, right? Like if we were outside, we would probably be interacting differently than from when we were inside.
You'd be burning hot.
Relativity, right? So I compare science, engineering, creative thinking, and all of these things, and I try to understand how do they all sync together. And this is how you can build what would seem like a complex system to a lot of people, but once you start to segregate it, you realize how it's all coming together. Yeah.
Right now, in terms of its composition, Baagisani is made up of how many people?
Okay. So, like I'm saying, we started as a WhatsApp group, right? So in the WhatsApp group, I would say it's just a community, right? So the think tank, in the WhatsApp group, we have around 220 people. But then we registered this entity called Baagisani. Baagisani right now has six people, 6 directors, of whom we are still building the strategies, Baagisani, and then also the businesses that we're trying to execute. I mean, even hella just from after the gallery is only a visual arts residency. We now have to build a music and performing arts residency. We have to build residencies for other art forms. And then we have to build a residency for creative administrators themselves.
Residency, you mean a physical place?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of real estate involved.
A lot. So, we have to be talking about whoever is building spaces right now has to be considering who's going to use them. So that is where strategic integration and partnership come in. Yeah.
Now, is there any kind of continental or international ambitions for Baagisani, even for the art gallery?
Yeah. One thing that I always stress is that Baagisani is a model. A model means a framework. It's you set pillars, but those pillars can be this far, right? Everything else is a result of, right? It's a continuous improvement system. It can be readopted primarily into any other African country because we built this model based on the Botswana culture. Since 2019 and how we were able to build the first strategic plan last year, we were extracting information of the problems that we have locally, and we were saying what principles should be guiding this framework, this model. So, I mean, we are as ambitious as Africa is, right? But then there's also where we also have to acknowledge that we have to integrate with the world. For us to build faster, we cannot just say we're going to keep to ourselves, and if, let me say, a research institution like Harvard comes to us, we cannot partner with them. We can. And we can grow together as long as there's transparency and openness and all of these things. Yeah.
Okay. What are the immediate projects that you are battling with or grappling with at the moment?
Oh, yeah. It's probably just, we have 3 projects, I would say. We had the WhatsApp group. We want to turn it into an advocacy voice that is actually speaking for the creative industries.
Convert it to a pressure group?
Exactly. Right? Because everybody's slow about creativity. One, primarily because...
So you'll be lobbying government and the private sector.
That's the plan. That's the plan. As long as we can also get support from the guys who are already on the ground. I think a lot of people don't want hits. So it's really... it comes with hits. It comes with risk, to some extent.
That's number 1.
Yeah.
And then?
So, that's the one that we really like to make tangible. And then number 2 is Baagisani itself. There's an element of we can help, let me say, brand Botswana, right? Botswana is not branded yet. We have a brand for products, so we have an economic brand.
When they say Pusha BW and they say my pride, my destination, isn't that some form of branding?
No, it's a project. It's a hashtag. Yeah, it's not a brand. There's nothing intrinsic about it. There's nothing that makes you. What are you standing for? That's what branding is. What are your values? Yeah. Pusha BW it's a hashtag. I mean, you see it.
No, I hear you.
It's like some things you see them, but you don't really see them because.
Yeah, but remember that people were you know, were hired by government to come up with a brand.
Yeah.
Originally, people were talking about before it became. What was it? Before it became.
Brand Bidia before brand Botswana.
Yeah, before it became my destination. My destination, your pride, or my pride, your destination. Something like that.
So.
It was something about tranquility beckons. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
Tranquility
was the time it would be Dia, right?
Yeah, they said tranquility beckons, and when people started saying, "What is tranquility?" That's when they went back to the drawing board and they came to.
Yeah.
So, how would you propose to brand the country then?
We need something that we all stand for.
Yeah,
I can't.
What do you have in mind?
I can't share it right now.
No, what would be the process?
Okay. Like I'm saying, the process is a think tank. What you do with it, you form small strategic groups that are objective about what goal do they want to reach, right? So you use what is called brainstorming or mind mapping, right? So you take the different intricate parts. You take the fact that Botswana believes in peace. Its people are naturally peaceful because of how they handle issues. I mean, we know the Kotla system and how its IP has been developed to be a problem-solving mechanism. So you take these elements and then there has to be a mind map to where they all meet, right? And then that's where you start developing the strategy. We already have strategists. I mean, like if you look at all of the advertising companies, it shouldn't be one company. That's something that you don't tender. You know, the reason why there's
you don't tender.
Tendering is a case study. It's a compilation of case studies. I think sometimes you don't look at what's the mission of, like, what are we trying to accomplish. You need to commission something like branding a country so that a lot of people can be involved in it.
Yeah, because tendering means that you just concentrate on one.
Who's going to oversee everybody and they can tell them no, yes, right? So you need a system that's more objective to say how we're going to robustly make sure that we brand Botswana and Botswana can sit in a certain place or be anywhere in the country and they would know what they stand for. Right?
So a project like that would take how long and what sort of resources?
It depends. It's about the right minds. The moment, one of the things, creativity is a whole approach. It's a whole new approach. Unfortunately, it's right from the way you hire people. It has to be creative. Instead of just employing your normal standard CV submit. I mean, you always hear even Elon Musk saying he doesn't look for CVs. Google doesn't use CVs anymore. So you use a talent acquisition methodology to see how you filter people. You get recommendations. You tap into a network, right? Different networks to see who's on the ground. So at the end of the day, the moment you get the right minds, you get the right strategists to coordinate the information. After that, you get the right technical team of the people who are going to execute. After that, you get the right support systems and all of these things. So it's a building thing. It can take less than a year. It can even take 6 months. As long as people are ready, from the time people are ready to start working, at a high level, once you have the information, you filter it down. One of the things the other day in the group, in our WhatsApp group, we were talking about AI, right? Artificial intelligence. And I was trying to show people that AI...
How mind-boggling it is. My son,
right?
My son sent me, sorry to interrupt, he said he found an app where you can just type, I think he typed my cool real estate dad.
Oh.
And then he came with a massive poem that describes everything that I am, and in a space of 5 seconds.
Wow.
Just by that phraseology. I mean, I have a whole poem here that he sent. And he was using AI. Because now the apps apparently are openly, publicly available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But AI, when you break it down as a system, it uses systems thinking, right? So from an engineering point, it engineers information. But it's just like YouTube. It's just like Google. It's just that it integrates more of the engineering science.
Well, isn't the notion that all the knowledge that's in the internet, it's able to use in a space of nanoseconds,
exactly,
and come up with synthesized and processed information that takes into account that thing,
exactly,
and depending on your input, what you've inputted, but
it's a garbage in, garbage out system.
Yeah, but it's a rapidity thing. It's a highly rapid thing.
Yeah.
And you can also use it for nefarious purposes.
Yeah.
And how dangerous is that?
Very dangerous. I was just talking about the dark web. I don't know if you've heard of the dark web.
I've heard of that expression.
Yeah. So, very dangerous. This is why we need creativity, because creativity assesses the processes, the policies, the governance structures. It's not just about building tech. And I always tell people, tech is analytical. It's actually not creative. It's only creative when you bring creative thinking into it. So you need a multimedia. So
it's about the inputs, really.
Exactly. It's all about the inputs. The Botswana who have those algorithms, the Botswana who can build blockchain, they just need a creative director who understands how those things can be integrated. They need a systems thinker who can coordinate whatever information the technical people are doing.
And is that the mandate of Baagisani?
That is the mandate. That is the plan. But the only complex thing is, everyone has to learn. They have to learn the system itself and learn how it works. One of the things even America did, people like Tesla, they died poor. People are always difficult to accept change,
especially from a genius,
and that a new thing is coming. And for me, yes, we may call them geniuses, but we have the methodologies now, and the methodologies are just being shared. Like for me, when I get information, I share it because I've realized that building something people don't understand is going to take you 100 times more time than when they actually have information.
So you're educating the market, as it were.
Exactly. Exactly. And the moment that they see that whatever that we're building is better than what they're doing, eventually they have to be a part of it. Some people may try to take bits and pieces of it to keep it for themselves. It's natural human inclination, because everybody's trying to keep that wealth, they're trying to retain that money. So it's human nature. But in the long run, as they go, because that is a continuous improvement system, they're going to hit a block where they now need to say,
plateau.
Exactly. We need consultation from the source, because it knows how to improve.
Level of complexity.
And that is what's happening in Africa.
Yeah.
We have taken the Western system that is supposed to be growing around Europeans, and we reach a point where it can't grow anymore, and we keep trying to reanalyze it ourselves and be like, how do we fix this? And everybody is in turmoil because it was never meant for us to begin with.
All right, time for you to hit me with that question. But before you do, what about your brand, Mr. Tumelo Bogatsu? What can we expect from your brand in the next 10 to 15 years? And then seeing that in the context of Baagisani. What does your crystal ball tell you?
I would say my God. there's a need.
Mm.
Creativity, the first thing that it does, it addresses empathy, the creative process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm empathetic. I want to build efficiency. I want to produce something new. I want to solve a problem. The need is here. COVID is hitting people left, right, and center.
Even the after effects of COVID.
Even the after effects of it.
Because it's
People,
supposed to be over, no?
exactly.
Mm.
People need a robust solution. Sometimes you think your problem is marketing, but it's bigger than that. You need a consultant. In the next 10 years, I see creativity being integrated into this country because we need it.
And you see your brand at the center of it.
At the center of it.
Including the Baagisani.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Baagisani is the one mobilizing everything. As long as we have the right team, we have the right minds, we have the dedicated people, we have people willing to put in resources. I mean, not only financial resources, but just tangible resources.
Well, I'll let you know now that I wish you everything of the best.
Thank
and
you.
I trust that it will come to fruition.
Thank you.
It blows my mind, but I agree with most of what you're saying.
Okay.
You have a question for me?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. One of the things, I'm one person who's always trying to know what everyone is doing. And I know you do real estate and you're one of the leading people in this nation. So I would just like to ask that. I mean, like, in terms of related to like what I'm doing in terms of building spaces for the generation that's coming up now after COVID. Like, do you have any plans? I also understand that you are also part of the Angel Network body. So I see already you have two things. You have the environmental and the economical side of things. You're missing one. So I just wanted to know what is your plan in terms of capacitating this generation?
One of the longest questions I've ever received. But constantly we have spaces.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. At the top of this building we have 1,200 square meters. Which we're trying to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
Whether to cover it up and make into a hub where creatives can come and do whatever.
Yeah.
Whether to turn into a restaurant where people can come and think and do whatever.
Yeah.
And we do have other spaces where prior to COVID, for instance, we had a conference facility where we're inviting creatives, especially speakers, and people who are interested in developing their ability to deliver and to speak, as well as people running workshops. We're giving them a platform for that, and obviously because we have to pay our bills as well, and these properties have to be maintained, we're asking them to pay nominally or highly discounted rates. So that is one way. The other way is, of course, to consider when small businesses are emerging. And we have a model which is slightly similar to the Riga's model at Mogobe Office Park, where somebody can start running a business for as little as rent of about $800 per month. And this enables you to have a vast array of resources, including phones, Wi-Fi, and access, and I've come across a number of businesses that since we started in 2018 are already saying that this thing has worked for them because they're able to grow from there. So these are little things. One person can't do everything. One organization can't do everything. But we're constantly endeavoring to see how we can impact. You mentioned Angel Network Botswana. People will have to go to our website and to our social media pages to see what we're about. But this is something that also is, in a sense, a product of COVID, because we're just celebrating 3 years now. We started in end of 2019, beginning of 2020, just before COVID, just as COVID was hitting. So we are now investing in startups and it's
Yeah.
growing, and we have close to 50. I'm the
Wow.
founder with a few others, but we managed to get 50 business persons
Oh, yeah.
to hook up to this, and we're constantly reviewing new businesses and seeing what we can invest in. So
Yeah.
it's a small little step, as
Yeah.
it were, in the right
Definitely.
direction.
Definitely.
Mm.
Definitely.
Okay.
I think maybe just one more. In terms of personally, though, I mean, I understand, there's where people want to build something of capacity considering other people.
Mm.
But personally, where is your passion project?
Well, I mean, that's those Angel Network is a bit of that, but we do offer mentorship services
Yeah.
for a nominal fee. But I just had one guest here who came up with the idea of maybe gathering people together and offering them free sessions. I'm thinking that to offer them sessions just based on the idea that was delivered by what's the guy's name? Red Denim Richards. Based on what this dynamic American actor was saying this morning. I was interviewing him. I'm thinking to just elevate a little bit of what I've been doing. We've doing for 2 years. We've been having a mentorship program on real estate. I'm sure you've seen it on social media.
Exactly.
So we're thinking that the next cohort, perhaps we should offer the first 2 sessions for free. And then once people have tasted a little bit, then they can go deeper. And I'm thinking of having his approach, because I think people don't know what they don't know. People don't know what they're missing. So until people realize that there's value in paying for the mentorship program and really getting into it and dig it, they sometimes they're just dismissive. So that is, if you like, a pet project. We've been running it for 2 years, and I've had a lot of positive feedback from my mentees that what we shared has benefited them in their own real estate journeys. Okay. You see that camera? It's there for you to look at that viewer in the eye and leave them with an uplifting, positive message that sort of encapsulates what we covered. Wrap it up.
Okay. We are here to solve the need of the time, and there's never been an urgent time as now. I think there's always opportunity. Opportunity always lurks where you are doing something, putting in effort. So I think as Botswana, we've built some good reputation around peace, around, certain things of how we view life. There's also issues of we are one of the least happy countries in the world, and so we need to address issues like that, our own happiness. How do we build together as a country? We need to be more cooperative. The people in offices really need to be there to help the people on the ground. One of the biggest challenges I think we have is I feel like we're competing with people who are supposed to be public servants or servants in companies. So it would be really good if we could learn a culture of being empathetic for one another, being compassionate, and wanting to see other people thrive so that we can thrive along with them, or we can thrive, or they can thrive, and then the nation can thrive as a whole. So just my 2 cents, let's really find ways to work together. Thank you.
All right. You must share all your contacts and physical and social media and otherwise.
Oh, okay.
So that they can reach out.
Okay, sure. So I would say my number, let me start with my number, is 72819292. 72819292. My email, I think if you can reach me at the artcasegallerybw@gmail.com. artcasegallerybw@gmail.com. My handles online, I would say LinkedIn. You can find me as Tumelo Bogatsu. And then Facebook, you can find me as Michael Tumelo. right?
Thank you very much. You've done a brilliant job, sir. I learned a lot from you.
Thank you too.
And, thanks
Thank you.
for enlightening us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, well.